The emergency room doors burst open at 2 in the morning, and Dawson looked up from her nursing station to see a man being wheeled in on a stretcher, his face pale and twisted in pain. She grabbed her clipboard and rushed over, her 12-hour shift forgotten as adrenaline kicked in. The paramedics rattled off vitals while she assessed the situation with practiced efficiency. Appendicitis, likely ruptured. They had maybe minutes to get him into surgery. "Get Dr. Martinez," she called to another nurse, already starting in Roman 4 line with steady hands. The man's eyes opened briefly, dark and unfocused with pain, and she found herself saying something she never did during emergencies. "You're going to be okay, I promise." She didn't know why she said it. Promises like that were dangerous in medicine. But something about his face, even contorted in agony, made her want to reassure him. He was young, probably early 30s, with strong features and an expensive watch that caught the fluorescent lights. Then Dr. Martinez arrived and Deanna stepped back, letting the team take over. 3 hours later, after the surgery was successful and the patient was in recovery, Deanna finally took her break. She sat in the staff room with cold coffee, rubbing her tired eyes. 28 years old, and she had been nursing for 6 years now, working double shifts to pay off her student loans and help her younger sister through college. The exhaustion was bone deep and constant. "The appendectomy from earlier is asking for you, Jenny," another nurse poked her head in. "Room 304. He's pretty insistent." Deanna frowned but stood up. Patients sometimes wanted to thank their nurses, though usually they waited until they were more coherent. She walked down the sterile hallway, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum, and pushed open the door to 304. The man from earlier was propped up in bed, still pale but alert now. His dark hair was messy, and he had the kind of face that probably turned heads when he wasn't recovering from emergency surgery. Sharp jawline, straight nose, those dark eyes that were now clear and focused directly on her. "You're the nurse who promised I'd be okay," he said, his voice rough from the anesthesia tube. "I am, and you are, so I kept my word." She checked his chart, professional and efficient. "How's your pain level? Manageable?" He watched her with an intensity that made her slightly uncomfortable. "What's your name, Deanna, and you're Xavier Brennan according to your chart?" "Just Xavier is fine." He shifted slightly and winced. "I wanted to thank you. I don't remember much, but I remember your voice. You sounded so certain. It's my job." She smiled politely, the same smile she gave all patients. "You should rest now. Surgery takes a lot out of you. Wait." His hand moved slightly like he wanted to reach out but thought better of it. "Will you be here tomorrow?" "I work tomorrow night, yes." "Good." He settled back against the pillows, looking satisfied. "Then I'll see you tomorrow." Deanna left feeling oddly unsettled. Something about Xavier Brennan stuck with her through the rest of her shift and on her drive home to her small apartment. She told herself it was nothing, just another patient, but she found herself thinking about his eyes and the way he had looked at her like she was someone important. The next evening, she arrived for her shift to find an enormous flower arrangement at the nursing station. Roses, lilies, orchids, the kind of display that probably cost more than her weekly paycheck. The card reads simply, "Thank you for saving my life, Xavier." "Someone's got an admirer," Jenny teased. "Those came this morning. The whole floor has been talking about it." Deanna felt her cheeks warm. It's just a patient being grateful. But when she checked on Xavier that evening, she found him sitting up, looking significantly better, working on a laptop despite the fact that he should have been resting. "You're supposed to be taking it easy," she said, entering the room with his medications. "I am taking it easy. Usually I work 16-hour days." He closed the laptop. "Did you get the flowers? They're lovely and completely unnecessary." She handed him the pills and water. What do you do that has you working 16-hour days? I run a restaurant group. Started with one place 10 years ago, now we have 43 across the East Coast. He said it casually, but Diana did the mental math. 43 successful restaurants meant he was more than comfortable, probably wealthy, very wealthy. That's impressive. She checked his incision site, trying to ignore how aware she was of his proximity. You should probably take a few weeks off to recover properly. I'm not good at sitting still. His eyes followed her movements. Have dinner with me. Diana nearly dropped the clipboard. What? When I get out of here, have dinner with me. I own some decent restaurants. I can promise you a good meal. Mr. Brennan, Xavier. Xavier, I can't date patients. It's completely inappropriate. Then I'll wait until I'm discharged. Then I won't be your patient anymore. He smiled, and it transformed his face entirely. He was handsome when serious, but when he smiled, he was devastating. I'm not usually in hospital beds at 2 in the morning, and you probably don't usually promise patients they'll survive. I think we met under unusual circumstances. I'd like to see what normal circumstances look like. Diana shook her head, but she was smiling despite herself. You were under a lot of pain medication when I said that. I remember everything about that moment. His voice was serious now. Your voice, your face, the way you looked at me like I mattered. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. Her heart did something complicated in her chest. You don't know anything about me. Then let me learn. One dinner. If you hate it, I'll never bother you again. She should have said no. There were a dozen reasons to say no. Professional boundaries, the wealth gap that was obvious from his watch and his laptop, and the way he casually mentioned owning 43 restaurants. But something in his eyes made her pause. Let me think about it, she finally said. I'll take that over a no. He settled back, looking pleased. Xavier was discharged 3 days later, and Diana told herself she was relieved. No more uncomfortable attraction, no more flowers being delivered, no more teasing from the other nurses. She could go back to her normal life of work and exhaustion and helping her sister Delilah with rent. Then she came home from a particularly brutal shift to find Xavier standing outside her apartment building. She stopped dead on the sidewalk. How did you find where I live? I asked around. He had the grace to look slightly sheepish. I know that sounds terrible, but I couldn't stop thinking about you, and you never gave me an answer about dinner. Xavier, this is crazy. You don't know me. I don't know you. Then let's fix that. He stepped closer, and she could see he was wearing a well-cut suit despite the fact that it was 10 at night. I know I'm being pushy. I know this probably seems insane, but I've never felt like this before. The moment I saw you, even through all that pain, something just clicked. I need to know if you felt it too. Diana stood there on the dark street, her nurse's scrubs rumpled, her hair falling out of its ponytail, exhausted to her bones. And she looked at this man, this wealthy restaurateur who was looking at her like she was the most important thing in his world. I did feel something, she admitted quietly. But that doesn't mean this is a good idea. Why not? Because you're you and I'm me. You own 43 restaurants. I live in a walk-up apartment and work double shifts to make rent. We're from completely different worlds. Xavier's jaw tightened. I grew up in a trailer park in Ohio. My mom cleaned houses. I built everything I have from nothing, so don't assume you know what world I'm from. She blinked, surprised. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have assumed. And I don't care what you do or where you live. I care that you made me feel safe in the worst moment of my life. I care that you've been in my head for days and I can't seem to get you out. He took a breath. One dinner. That's all I'm asking. If there's nothing there, I'll walk away. Diana knew she should say no. Every rational part of her brain was screaming it. But her heart, her tired, guarded heart, was saying something different. One dinner, she heard herself say. His smile could have lit up the entire street. "Saturday night, I'll pick you up at 7. I work until 6. Then 7:30. And Deanna," he was already walking backward, "wear something you feel beautiful in, not for me but for you." He disappeared around the corner, and Deanna stood there wondering what she had just agreed to. She climbed the 4 flights to her apartment, unlocked the door, and found her sister Delilah sprawled on the couch watching television. "You look weird," Delilah said, looking up. She was 23 in her final year of college, studying engineering. "What happened?" "I think I just agreed to a date with a millionaire." Delilah sat up fast. "What? Explain. Now." Deanna collapsed next to her and told her everything. The emergency surgery, the flowers, Xavier showing up at their apartment. By the end, Delilah was grinning like she had won the lottery. "This is like something from a movie," she said. "My boring big sister has a romance novel life and didn't tell me. It's not a romance novel. It's probably going to be one awkward dinner and then nothing. Or," Delilah said, "it's going to be the start of something amazing." "When's the last time you went on a date?" Deanna thought about it. 8 months. That guy from the hospital cafeteria, who talked about his ex-wife the entire time. This is different. This guy is pursuing you. When's the last time someone pursued you? Never, Deanna thought. She had always been the practical one, the responsible one. After their parents died in a car accident when Deanna was 20 and Delilah was 15, Deanna had put herself through nursing school while raising her teenage sister. Romance had always been something that happened to other people. "I don't even know what to wear," she said. Delilah jumped up. "Then we're going shopping. You have Saturday off before your evening shift ends, right? We're finding you something perfect." Saturday arrived faster than Deanna expected. She spent the morning anxious, the afternoon getting ready with Delilah's help, and by 7:15 she was standing in her small bedroom wearing a deep blue dress that Delilah had insisted brought out her eyes. It was the most she had spent on clothing in years. "You look beautiful," Delilah said, fixing Deanna's hair. "He's going to lose his mind." The buzzer rang at exactly 7:30. Deanna took a deep breath, grabbed her purse and headed downstairs. Xavier was waiting on the street next to a sleek black car, wearing a dark suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. But when he saw her, his expression made her feel like the wealthiest person in the city. "You look incredible," he said softly. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." She was nervous, her hands fidgeting with her purse strap. He opened the car door for her, and she slid into leather seats that were more comfortable than her bed. The drive took them into the heart of downtown, where Xavier pulled up to a restaurant with an understated elegance. The valet took the keys and Xavier offered her his arm. "This is one of yours?" she asked. "The first one I ever opened. Still my favorite." He led her inside, where the hostess greeted him by name and showed them to a private table in the back. The lighting was low, candles flickering, and through the windows she could see the city lights spread out like stars. "This is beautiful," Deanna said, sitting down. "I'm glad you like it." Xavier sat across from her, and for a moment they just looked at each other. "I was terrified you wouldn't come. I almost didn't." She was being honest because something about him made her want to be. "This is all very outside my comfort zone. Mine too, believe it or not. I don't usually chase women to their apartments," he smiled slightly. "But you're different. You keep saying that, but you don't know me well enough to know if I'm different. Then tell me about yourself. I want to know everything." So she did. Over wine and food that was better than anything she had ever tasted, Diana found herself talking about things she rarely shared. Her parents' death, raising Delilah, the struggle of nursing school and night shifts and student loans. How she had always put everyone else first and forgotten what it meant to want something for herself. Xavier listened like every word mattered. Then he shared his own story. Growing up poor, working in restaurant kitchens from age 15, saving every penny. Opening his first place at 23 with borrowed money and sheer determination. Building an empire through 80-hour weeks and refusing to accept failure. Why restaurants? Deanna asked. Because food brings people together. Every important moment in life happens around a table. First dates. He smiled at her meaningfully. Proposals, celebrations. I like being part of those moments. That's actually really beautiful. Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation as a ruthless businessman to maintain. They talked until the restaurant was closing, until the staff was politely hovering, and Xavier finally paid the bill. He drove her home through empty streets, and Deanna realized she didn't want the night to end. "Can I see you again?" Xavier asked when they pulled up to her building. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Tomorrow," she laughed. "I work a double tomorrow. Then the day after, and the day after that, and every day you'll let me." Deanna looked at him, at this intense, driven man who was looking at her like she was a miracle. "I'm not ready for this," she admitted quietly. "For whatever this is becoming, I haven't done this before. I don't know how to be with someone, especially someone like you." Xavier reached across and took her hand. His palm was warm, his grip gentle but firm. "Then I'll wait. As long as it takes for you to be ready. I'm not going anywhere, Deanna." Her throat tightened with emotion. "You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you're kind and strong and beautiful. I know you care about people. I know that when you smile, it's real, not like all the fake smiles I see every day. I know I want to spend every moment I can learning the rest." Deanna squeezed his hand. "I work a lot. My schedule is unpredictable. I'm not glamorous or exciting. I don't want glamorous or exciting. I want real. I want you." She leaned across the console and kissed him. Just a soft press of lips, barely a moment, but it felt like everything shifting into place. When she pulled back, Xavier's eyes were dark and warm. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said, his voice rough. Deanna nodded and got out of the car, floating up the stairs to her apartment where Delilah was waiting with 1,000 questions. She answered them all in a daze, her lips still tingling, her heart doing impossible things in her chest. The next weeks became a blur of stolen moments. Xavier would show up at the hospital when her shift ended, bringing coffee and food from his restaurants. They would sit in his car and talk until Deanna had to go home and sleep. On her days off, they explored the city together. He took her to art museums and jazz clubs and tiny hole-in-the-wall places he loved. She showed him her world, the community center where she volunteered, the park where she ran on the rare mornings she had energy. He never pushed for more than she was ready to give. Their kisses stayed gentle, exploratory. His hands were respectful, and every time Deanna felt overwhelmed by the intensity of her feelings, Xavier seemed to sense it and pulled back, giving her space. "You're being very patient," she said one evening. They were in his apartment, a penthouse overlooking the river that was decorated in warm woods and soft fabrics. Nothing like the cold, sterile bachelor pad she had expected. "I told you I'd wait." Xavier was cooking dinner, something he did often despite having professional chefs at his disposal. He said it relaxed him. "I meant it. Most men wouldn't." "I'm not most men." He looked at her seriously. "Deanna, I need you to understand something. I've dated before. I've had relationships, but I've never felt like this. Never wanted someone to be part of my life so completely. So I'll wait a year if that's what you need. 2 years. However long it takes for you to trust this." Deanna felt her eyes sting. "I'm falling in love with you." Xavier went very still. Then he set down the spatula and crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. "Say that again." "I'm falling in love with you," she whispered against his chest, "and it terrifies me." Why does it terrify you? Because I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be vulnerable with someone. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not enough for your life? Xavier pulled back and cupped her face in his hands. You're everything. And you're not going to mess this up because we're in this together, both of us figuring it out. He kissed her then, deeper than before, and Diana felt something inside her unlock. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Xavier rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling in love with you too, he said. Actually, I think I fell in love with you that first night when you promised I'd be okay. I just didn't know it yet. That night they stayed up talking until dawn, wrapped around each other on his couch. Deanna called in sick to work for the first time in years, and they spent the day in bed, not having sex but just being close, learning each other's bodies in gentle, unhurried ways. Tell me about your parents, Xavier said, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. So she did. She told him about her mother's laugh, her father's terrible jokes, about the accident, the funeral, the overwhelming responsibility of suddenly being a guardian at 20. About the nights she cried herself to sleep and the mornings she had to pretend everything was fine for Delilah's sake. You're the strongest person I know, Xavier said quietly. I didn't have a choice. You did. You could have given up. You could have let social services take her. But you didn't. You fought for your family. Deanna turned to look at him. Tell me about yours. You said your mom cleaned houses. Xavier's expression darkened slightly. She worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. My dad left when I was 5. I have a younger brother, Marcus, who I haven't spoken to in years. Why not? Because when I started making money, he showed up wanting handouts. Not a relationship, just money. When I said no, that I'd help him get a job but wouldn't just give him cash, he called me selfish and left. Haven't heard from him since. Deanna laced her fingers with his. I'm sorry. It's old pain. But it taught me that blood doesn't always mean family. Family is who shows up for you, who sees you at your worst and stays anyway. They were both orphans in their own ways, Deanna realized. Both had built themselves from broken pieces. Maybe that's why they fit together so well. 3 months into their relationship, Xavier asked her to move in with him. Deanna's first instinct was to say no, that it was too fast, too soon. But then she thought about her cramped apartment, the long commute to the hospital, how much time she wasted traveling back and forth. Let me think about it, she said, of course. Xavier kissed her temple. No pressure, but I want you to know that I'm serious about this, about us. I want you in my space, in my life, permanently. Deanna talked to Delilah, who was enthusiastic. You should do it. You're over there most nights anyway, and he's crazy about you. What about you? I don't want you to feel abandoned. Delilah rolled her eyes. I'm 23, not 13. I'll be fine. Actually, I've been thinking about getting my own place anyway, maybe finding a roommate. You've taken care of me long enough. It's time for you to take care of yourself. The conversation made Diana emotional. Her baby sister wasn't a baby anymore. Somewhere along the way, while Deanna was working and worrying, Delilah had grown into a capable, independent woman. When did you get so wise? Deanna asked. I learned from the best. Delilah hugged her. Move in with him, be happy, you deserve it. So Deanna said yes. They moved her things on a Saturday, which didn't take long because she didn't own much. Xavier insisted she make the space hers, to change anything she wanted. She added photos and plants, small touches that made the penthouse feel like home. Living together revealed new dimensions to their relationship. Deanna learned that Xavier woke up at 5 every morning to exercise, that he was obsessive about kitchen organization, that he sang off-key in the shower. Xavier learned that Deanna was grumpy before coffee, that she hoarded medical journals she never had time to read, that she cried during commercials when she was tired. They fought occasionally, normal couple arguments about whose turn it was to do dishes or whose schedule took priority. But they always talked it through, neither one willing to let resentment build. 6 months in, Diana met Xavier's business partner, Marcus Reyes, who ran the financial side of their restaurant empire. He was friendly and sharp, immediately putting Diana at ease. "Xavier's a different person since he met you," Marcus said over lunch. "More grounded, happier." "He makes me happy too," Diana said. "Good. He deserves that. He spent 10 years building this business. It's nice to see him building a life too." That same week, Xavier met Delilah properly. Diana had been nervous about it, but the two hit it off immediately. Xavier asked Delilah about her engineering studies with genuine interest, and by the end of the evening they were arguing good-naturedly about architecture and design. "I like him," Delilah whispered to Diana in the kitchen. "He's good for you." "Yeah," Diana said, watching Xavier laugh at something on his phone. "He really is. But not everything was perfect. Xavier's work was demanding, and there were nights he came home stressed and distant. Diana's job was emotionally draining, and some shifts left her hollow. They had to learn to support each other through the hard moments, to be patient with bad moods and exhaustion. One particularly bad night, Diana came home from a shift where she had lost a patient. A young mother, preventable complications, and Diana had held her hand as she died. She walked into the apartment, dropped her bag, and just stood there numb. Xavier took one look at her face and pulled her into his arms. He didn't ask questions, didn't push. Just held her while she cried, stroked her hair, and whispered that she was safe. Later, he ran her a bath, made her tea, and sat with her in comfortable silence until she was ready to talk. "I couldn't save her," Diana finally said. "Her kids are going to grow up without a mother, and I couldn't save her." "You did everything you could," Xavier said. "I know you did because you always do. You're the most dedicated nurse I've ever met. But you're human, Diana. You can't save everyone. I know, it just hurts every time." "I know it does. And I'm here for every one of those moments. Always." Diana realized then that she didn't just love Xavier. She trusted him completely, with her heart, with her pain, with everything. A few weeks later, Xavier took her to meet his mother. She lived in a small house in New Jersey, filled with photos and comfortable furniture. Rita Brennan was a tiny woman with sharp eyes and Xavier's smile. "So you're the nurse who caught my son's heart," Rita said, hugging Diana like she had known her for years. "I'm still not sure how that happened," Diana admitted. "I am. You're real. Xavier's had plenty of women chase him for his money, but you see him, not his bank account. That's rare." Over dinner, Rita told embarrassing stories about Xavier's childhood. He pretended to be annoyed, but Diana could see how much he loved his mother, how he relaxed in her presence. Before they left, Rita pulled Diana aside. "He's going to ask you to marry him soon," she said quietly. "I can tell. He has that look, the same one his father had before he proposed to me." Diana's heart stuttered. "I don't know if I'm ready for that. He'll wait. That boy would wait forever for you." "But Diana," Rita squeezed her hand. "Don't make him wait too long. Life's short. When you find someone who loves you like he loves you, you hold on tight." The conversation stayed with Diana for days. Marriage. She hadn't let herself think that far ahead, too focused on just navigating the present. But now the idea was planted, growing. Did she want to marry Xavier? The question didn't scare her as much as she expected. Yes, she realized. She wanted everything with him. Marriage, a future, maybe even kids someday. But there were things she needed to resolve first. Her student loans were crushing her. Even living with Xavier, even with his quiet offers to help, Diana had insisted on keeping her finances separate. She was too independent, too used to handling everything alone. But the debt was a constant weight, limiting her options and her future. One evening, she finally broached the subject. "I need to talk to you about something." Xavier looked up from his laptop. "Okay, what's going on?" "My student loans. They're substantial. I've been paying them down for years, but it's going to take another decade at my current rate. And I know you've offered to help before, but I need to handle this myself. I need you to understand that." Xavier closed his laptop and gave her his full attention. "I do understand. Your independence is part of who you are, but Diana, we're partners. If something is weighing on you, it's weighing on us. I'm not trying to take over or diminish what you've accomplished, but I have resources. Let me help. I don't want you to think I'm with you for your money. I have never thought that, not once. You fought me on letting you move in rent-free. You insist on paying for groceries even though it's ridiculous. You're the least gold-digging person I've ever met." He reached across and took her hand. "Let me do this. Not because you need me to, but because I want to. Because the idea of you stressing about money for another decade when I can fix it right now is unbearable." Deanna felt tears prick her eyes. "It's over $100,000. I don't care if it's $1 million. Please let me help." She thought about pride, about independence, about all the years she had done everything alone. Then she thought about partnership, about trust, about letting someone care for her. "Okay," she whispered, "but I'm paying you back." "Absolutely not." "Xavier, no, this isn't a loan, it's a gift. Consider it an early wedding present." Diana's breath caught. "Wedding present?" Xavier's eyes widened slightly. "I didn't mean to say that, but you did." Her heart was racing. "Were you planning to propose?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly nervous in a way she rarely saw. "I've been carrying a ring around for 3 weeks trying to find the perfect moment. I wanted it to be special and romantic, not during an argument about student loans." Deanna started laughing, slightly hysterical. "You've been carrying around a ring?" "In my jacket pocket." "It's probably terrible luck or something." But he was smiling now, too. "Deanna, I know we haven't been together that long, I know you need time, but I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. So yes, I was planning to propose. I was just waiting for the right time." "What if the right time is now?" Xavier stood up slowly. "Are you serious?" "I don't need a perfect romantic moment, I just need you." Deanna stood too, her heart full. "I love you, I want to marry you, I want everything with you." Xavier pulled the ring box from his jacket, which was hanging on the back of his chair. His hands were actually shaking as he opened it. Inside was a simple, elegant diamond that caught the light beautifully. "Diana Dawson, will you marry me?" "Yes." The word came out choked with emotion. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slid the ring on her finger and then he was kissing her, and Diana felt like her heart might explode from happiness. This man, this incredible man who had waited for her, who had been patient with her fears, who loved her so completely. They celebrated quietly, just the two of them, ordering takeout and sitting on the couch making plans. They wanted a small wedding, they agreed, close friends and family. Nothing extravagant, within the year. Telling Delilah was almost as exciting as the proposal itself. Her sister screamed and hugged them both, already planning the bachelorette party. Rita cried happy tears when they called her. Marcus demanded to be best man and started making inappropriate jokes. The next months were a whirlwind of planning around work schedules. Diana cut back to 4 shifts a week, letting herself enjoy life for the first time in years. She and Xavier traveled, spent long weekends at a beach house he owned, talked about their future. They discussed children. Diana wanted them eventually, maybe in a few years. Xavier admitted he had never thought much about kids until her, but now he found himself imagining a little girl with Diana's eyes or a boy with her determination. "What if I'm terrible at it?" Diana asked. "I raised Delilah, but that was different. What if I mess up our own kids?" Then we'll mess up together. That's what parenting is, from what I understand. Loving your kids and trying your best and messing up and trying again. They decided to wait at least 2 years. Let themselves be married, be a couple before adding that complexity. Deanna wanted to focus on her career too, maybe go back to school for a master's degree in nursing. Xavier was opening 5 new restaurants and needed to be hands-on with the launches. The wedding was planned for September, almost exactly a year after that first dinner. They chose a small venue upstate, a restored barn surrounded by autumn foliage. Deanna's dress was simple lace, elegant without being fussy. Xavier wore a dark suit and looked at her like she hung the moon. Delilah was maid of honor. Marcus was best man. Rita sat in the front row crying. The ceremony was short and heartfelt. They wrote their own vows. Deanna went first, her voice steady despite her nerves. Xavier, a year ago I was living half a life. Working, surviving, but not really living. You changed that. You showed me what it means to be loved completely, to be someone's priority. You've been patient with my fears and supportive of my dreams. You make me laugh, you make me think, and you make me want to be brave. I promise to love you with everything I have for the rest of my life. Xavier's vows were rougher, his voice thick with emotion. Deanna, I didn't know what I was missing until I met you. I had success and money and everything the world says should make you happy. But I wasn't really happy. Then you walked into my life and everything made sense. You're my home, my best friend, my everything. I promise to support your dreams, to hold you when you're sad, to celebrate your victories. I promise to wait when you need time and to push when you need encouragement. I promise to love you, exactly as you are, forever. When the officiant pronounced them married, the small crowd erupted in applause. Xavier kissed her like they were the only 2 people in the world, and Deanna felt complete in a way she never had before. The reception was joyful and intimate. Good food, great music, and people who genuinely loved them. Deanna danced with Xavier, with Delilah, with Marcus, who was surprisingly good. They cut the cake, gave short speeches, and snuck away early to their hotel suite. "Hello, wife," Xavier said, closing the door behind them. "Hello, husband." Deanna was already taking off her shoes. "That was perfect. You were perfect." He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. "I love you. I love you too." They made love slowly, tenderly, with the kind of intimacy that came from truly knowing someone. Afterwards, lying in the dark, Deanna felt overwhelmingly grateful. For this man, for this love, for this life they were building together. Their honeymoon was 2 weeks in Italy. Xavier showed her his favorite restaurants. They toured ancient ruins, drank wine in Tuscany, and made love in hotel rooms with views of the Mediterranean. It was the most relaxed Deanna had ever been. No schedule, no responsibilities, just them. "We should do this every year," she said, lying by a pool in Positano. "Just disappear somewhere and remember why we love each other." "I never forget why I love you." But Xavier was smiling. "But yes, let's make it a tradition." Back home, they settled into married life easily. Their relationship didn't change dramatically, but there was a deeper security now, an unshakable foundation. They were building something permanent, something real. 6 months after the wedding, Deanna started her master's program. Xavier supported her completely, adjusting his schedule to be home when she needed to study, bringing her coffee during late-night paper writing sessions. When she graduated 2 years later, he was in the front row cheering louder than anyone. They traveled more, explored new cities, tried new things. Deanna discovered she loved hiking. Xavier learned he enjoyed painting terrible abstract pieces that Deanna hung in their home anyway. They adopted a dog, a rescue mutt named Charlie, who became their baby before they were ready for human babies. 3 years into their marriage, they started trying for children. Deanna went off birth control and they waited with excitement and hope. When her period came the first month, they weren't worried. The second month, still optimistic. By the 6th month, Deanna was starting to feel anxious. "Maybe we should see a specialist," she said one evening. Xavier pulled her close. "If you want to." "But Deanna, whether we have biological children or adopt or end up just the two of us and Charlie, I'm happy. As long as I have you." His words eased something in her chest. They saw a fertility specialist who ran tests and found nothing wrong with either of them. "Sometimes it just takes time," the doctor said. "Try to relax and not stress about it." Easier said than done, but they tried. And 2 months later, Deanna woke up feeling nauseous. She took a test, then another, then 3 more, each one showing 2 pink lines. When Xavier came home from work, she handed him the stick without a word. He stared at it, then at her, then back at the test. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby." Deanna started crying, happy, overwhelmed tears. Xavier dropped to his knees and pressed his face to her still flat stomach. "Hello in there. This is your dad. I can't wait to meet you." Deanna ran her fingers through his hair, feeling so full of love she thought she might burst. This man, this life, this future they were creating together. The pregnancy was mostly smooth. Morning sickness in the first trimester, exhaustion throughout, but nothing Deanna couldn't handle. Xavier was attentive to the point of being overbearing, constantly worried about her lifting things or working too hard. She finally had to sit him down and explain that she was pregnant, not fragile. "I just want you and the baby safe," he said. "We are safe. But you need to let me live my life. I'm still working, I'm still capable. The baby is the size of a lemon, not a watermelon." He backed off slightly, though Deanna would catch him watching her with concern when he thought she wasn't looking. It was sweet, really, how much he cared. They found out they were having a girl. Xavier cried in the ultrasound room, holding Deanna's hand and staring at the screen like it held the secrets of the universe. They started decorating the nursery, arguing playfully about colors and themes. Deanna wanted soft greens and yellows. Xavier wanted to paint a mural of the night sky. "You're not painting a mural," Deanna said firmly. "You can barely paint abstract blobs. I would hire someone to paint it. We're doing soft yellow, final answer." They compromised on pale yellow walls with white furniture and star-shaped lamps. Delilah, now working as an engineer and dating a nice guy named Thomas, helped them assemble baby furniture and organize tiny clothes. "I can't believe you're going to be a mom," Delilah said, folding impossibly small onesies. "I still remember when you were taking care of me. Now you're going to help me figure out how to take care of her." Deanna rested a hand on her swollen belly. "I'm terrified I'll mess this up." "You won't. Look how well I turned out," Deanna laughed. "You did turn out pretty great, because I had the best example. Your daughter is going to be loved and cared for, and she's going to know she can do anything, just like you taught me." The words meant everything. Deanna had spent so many years worrying she wasn't doing enough for Delilah, that she was too young, too unprepared. But her sister had grown into an incredible woman, and maybe Deanna had something to do with that. Labor came 2 weeks before the due date, starting with contractions while Deanna was making breakfast. Xavier went into full panic mode, rushing around gathering bags and forgetting where he put the car keys. Deanna had to sit him down and make him breathe. "We've got time," she said calmly, despite the fact that her contractions were getting closer together. "Keys are on the counter. Bag is by the door. Let's go have a baby." At the hospital, the nurses recognized Deanna and made her comfortable. Xavier held her hand through every contraction, let her squeeze until his fingers went white, and never once complained. 13 hours later, their daughter entered the world screaming and perfect. Diana held her, this tiny human that she and Xavier had created, and felt her heart expand impossibly. "She's perfect. She looks like you," Xavier whispered, touching one tiny fist with gentle fingers. They named her Emma Grace Brennan. Emma because they both loved it, Grace after Diana's mother. She had dark hair and Xavier's eyes and lungs that proved she was healthy and strong. The first weeks were exhausting and magical. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, learning to breastfeed. Xavier took 2 weeks off work completely, something he had never done. He changed diapers, did midnight feeding shifts with pumped milk, and sang terribly to Emma until she fell asleep. Diana watched him hold their daughter, this powerful businessman reduced to putty by a 7-pound baby, and fell in love with him all over again. He was an incredible father, patient and gentle and completely devoted. Rita visited often, helping with laundry and cooking while Diana recovered. Delilah came over with Thomas, both of them eager to hold their niece. Marcus sent an enormous teddy bear and a card that made Diana cry with its unexpected sweetness. As Emma grew, their life shifted to accommodate her. Xavier worked from home more. Diana went back to work part-time, her schedule carefully arranged around Xavier's so one of them was always with Emma. They were exhausted and happy and so in love with their little family. Emma's first smile, her first laugh, her first time rolling over each milestone felt monumental. Diana took 1,000 photos, sent updates to everyone they knew, and cherished every moment even when she was tired beyond belief. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Xavier surprised Diana with a weekend away. Rita stayed with Emma and they escaped to the beach house for 2 nights of uninterrupted sleep and adult conversation. "I miss this," Diana said, lying on the beach next to Xavier. "Don't get me wrong, I love Emma more than life itself, but I miss just being us sometimes." "Me too. We should do this more often. Monthly date nights, quarterly weekends away. We need to stay connected as a couple, not just as parents. You're very wise." She kissed him softly. "Thank you for that first date, for being patient with me, for building this life with me. Thank you for saying yes. For taking a chance on me." Xavier pulled her closer. "I love you more now than I did 5 years ago. I didn't think that was possible, but every year I fall deeper. I love you too, so much." They made love that night with the ocean outside the window, unhurried and intimate. It was different from the early days, their bodies changed by time and parenthood, but somehow better. Deeper. More meaningful. When Emma was 2, Diana got pregnant again. This time it happened faster, and this time she knew what to expect. They were having a boy, and Emma was excited about being a big sister even if she didn't fully understand what that meant. "Baby," Emma would say, patting Diana's stomach gently, and Diana's heart would melt. Their son, Noah James, arrived on a sunny spring morning. The labor was faster, only 6 hours, and suddenly they were a family of 4. Emma was fascinated by her brother, wanting to hold him constantly under careful supervision. The house was chaotic now, full of toys and laughter and the beautiful mess of young children. Xavier opened 2 more restaurants and then decided to pause expansion to focus on family. Diana worked per diem at the hospital, keeping her skills sharp but prioritizing being home. Some days were hard. Tantrums and teething and the endless needs of small children. But most days were beautiful. Building blocks on the living room floor, family dinners where Emma told rambling stories, bath time where Noah splashed everyone, bedtime stories with 2 little bodies pressed against theirs. "Is this what you imagined?" Diana asked Xavier one evening. They were watching their children sleep, Emma in her big girl bed and Noah in his crib. "It's better than anything I imagined. I didn't know I could love this much. You, them, this life we've built." Deanna leaned against him, feeling the same. They had come so far from that night in the emergency room. From Deanna's fear and hesitation to this full, rich life they were living. Years passed in a beautiful blur. Emma started kindergarten. Noah learned to walk and talk. They moved to a bigger house in the suburbs with a yard where the kids could play. Xavier sold some of his restaurants and started consulting, wanting more flexibility. Deanna went back to full-time nursing but in a management role with better hours. They had movie nights and family vacations and holidays filled with traditions. They fought sometimes about parenting styles or finances or whose turn it was to deal with the tantrum. But they always came back together, always remembered what mattered. On their 10th anniversary, Xavier recreated their first date at the same restaurant. It was a Sunday evening, the kids with Rita, and Diana wore a blue dress that reminded them both of that first night. "You remember how terrified I was?" Diana asked over dessert. "You hit it well." "I was the terrified one. I thought for sure you'd realize I was completely out of my depth." "We both were." She reached across the table and took his hand. "But we figured it out together. Best decision I ever made showing up at your apartment that night. Best decision I ever made saying yes to dinner." They went home and made love, then stayed up talking like they used to, remembering their journey. From that emergency room to this moment, all the challenges and triumphs, all the ways they had grown together. Emma grew into a smart, fierce girl who wanted to be a doctor. Noah was gentle and artistic, spending hours drawing and building elaborate structures. Deanna watched her children become people and felt proud and terrified in equal measure. "They're growing up so fast," she told Xavier one evening. Emma was 11 now, Noah 8. "I know. Soon they won't need us anymore. Then it'll be just us again. Are you ready for that?" Xavier pulled her into his arms. "I'm ready for anything as long as you're with me. Another 40 years, another 50, however long we get. I want every moment with you." Diana held him tight, this man who had waited for her, who had loved her through her fears and doubts, who had built this incredible life with her. She thought about that nurse at 2 in the morning, exhausted and alone, making a promise to a stranger. She couldn't have known then what that moment would become. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too, always." And in that moment, surrounded by the evidence of their life together, the photos on the walls, the toys scattered on the floor, the sound of their children breathing in sleep upstairs, Diana knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. With this man, this family, this beautiful life they had created from a moment of chance and a choice to be brave. Years continued to unfold with the comfortable rhythm of a life well lived. Emma graduated high school at the top of her class and chose to pursue medicine like she had always dreamed. Noah discovered a passion for architecture, spending his teenage years sketching buildings and studying design. Diana watched her children become adults with pride that sometimes overwhelmed her. Xavier's restaurant empire had grown to 60 locations, but he had learned to delegate, to trust his team. He spent his time mentoring young chefs and restaurateurs, giving back in ways that fulfilled him more than expansion ever had. On weekends, he and Diana would escape to their beach house, walking along the shore and talking about everything and nothing. Delilah married Thomas in a beautiful ceremony, and Diana stood as maid of honor just like her sister had done for her. When Delilah announced she was pregnant a year later, Diana cried happy tears at the thought of becoming an aunt. Rita grew older but stayed sharp and involved, the kids visiting her every Sunday for her famous cookies and stories about Xavier's childhood. She told Diana once, holding her hand, "Thank you for loving my son the way he deserves, for building this family. You made him whole. On their 20th anniversary, Xavier surprised Deanna with a party. All their friends and family gathered at the restaurant where they had their first date, which was still Xavier's favorite. Emma and Noah gave speeches that made everyone cry. Marcus joked about knowing they would last forever from that first week when Xavier wouldn't shut up about the beautiful nurse. 20 years ago, Xavier said in his toast, pulling Deanna close, I was rushed into an emergency room in the worst pain of my life. And I met this woman who promised I would be okay. She was right, but not just about the surgery. She made everything okay. She took my life and filled it with love and laughter and purpose. Deanna, you are my home, my heart, my everything. Here's to 20 more years and 20 after that, and however many we get. Deanna kissed him in front of everyone, not caring about the hoots and applause. You waited for me when I wasn't ready. You loved me before I knew how to accept it. You built this life with me one day at a time. I would choose you in every lifetime. Xavier Brennan. The party continued late into the night, filled with dancing and joy and the kind of happiness that comes from years of choosing each other every single day. When they finally went home, exhausted and content, Xavier pulled Deanna into his arms in their bedroom. Ready for the next 20, he asked. With you, I'm ready for anything. They fell asleep tangled together, the moonlight streaming through the windows, surrounded by the life they had built and the love that had started with a promise in an emergency room and grown into something neither of them could have imagined. Emma eventually became a pediatric surgeon, carrying on Diana's legacy of caring for others. Noah became an architect who specialized in designing community spaces, combining his artistic vision with his desire to bring people together. Both children grew into adults who were kind and driven and deeply loved. Diana and Xavier became grandparents when Emma had twins, a boy and a girl who had Xavier's dark eyes and Emma's determination. Noah married a sweet woman named Clara, and they adopted 2 children, giving them the family they deserved. The Brennan family grew and expanded, filled with laughter and love, and the occasional drama that came with any large family. Through it all, Deanna and Xavier remained the center, the foundation. Their love story became family legend, told and retold to grandchildren who listened with wide eyes. On their 30th anniversary, they returned to the beach where Xavier had surprised Deanna all those years ago. They walked along the shore hand in hand, their bodies older but their connection as strong as ever. You remember when you said you weren't ready? Xavier asked. Every day, I was so scared. And I told you I'd wait. Best thing anyone ever said to me. Deanna stopped walking and turned to face him. Thank you for waiting, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself, for loving me into becoming who I am. You did the same for me. I was just a guy building restaurants trying to prove something. You taught me what actually matters. Family. Love. Being present. He cupped her face gently. I love you more today than I did yesterday and less than I will tomorrow. Deanna leaned into him, feeling his heartbeat against hers, steady and sure. They had built something beautiful together. A family, a legacy. A love that had weathered everything life threw at them. As the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in oranges and pinks, they stood together in comfortable silence. 2 people who had found each other in the most unlikely way and chosen each other every day since. 2 people who had created a life full of meaning and joy and deep, abiding love. And if you had asked Diana in that moment if she regretted anything, if she wished she had been ready sooner or done anything differently, she would have said no. Because every moment, every choice, every fear and triumph had led her here. To this man, this life, this perfect moment on a beach at sunset. She wasn't that scared nurse anymore, the one who worked herself to exhaustion and forgot to dream. And Xavier wasn't just the driven businessman trying to build an empire. They were partners, lovers, best friends. They were parents and grandparents. They were proof that sometimes the best things in life come when you're brave enough to take a chance, patient enough to wait, and wise enough to recognize love when it finds you. "Ready to head back?" Xavier asked eventually. "Always ready, as long as I'm with you." They walked back to the house hand in hand, their footprints in the sand already being washed away by the tide. But the love they had built, the life they had created together, that would last forever. Not in grand gestures or perfect moments, but in the everyday choice to love each other, to show up, to build something beautiful one day at a time. And that, Deanna thought as Xavier opened the door and pulled her inside with a kiss, was the greatest love story of all. Not the fairy tale beginning, but the choosing to stay, to grow, to love deeper with each passing year. That was what made their story special. Not that he was a millionaire or she was a nurse, but that they were two people who had found each other and decided that what they had was worth fighting for, worth nurturing, worth everything. As they settled in for the evening, talking and laughing and planning their next adventure, Deanna sent up a silent thank you to the universe for that night in the emergency room. For Xavier's appendix choosing that moment to rupture, for her being on shift, for all the tiny chances and choices that had led to this beautiful life. Because sometimes love doesn't happen when you're ready. Sometimes it happens when you're scared and uncertain and convinced you can't handle one more thing. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you meet someone who sees all of that and says they'll wait. Someone who proves through action and patience and unwavering devotion that they mean it. Xavier had waited for Deanna, and Diana had been brave enough to let him. Together they had built something that would last not just their lifetimes, but generations. A love story that started with fear and patience and became something neither of them could have imagined. That was their legacy. Not the restaurants or the money or the success. But this, the love they shared, the family they built, the way they chose each other every single day for 30 years and counting. And they would keep choosing each other through whatever came next, because that's what love was. Not the falling, but the staying. Not the beginning, but the choosing to continue. And as they fell asleep that night, wrapped in each other's arms just like they had been for 30 years, both Deanna and Xavier knew with absolute certainty that they would choose each other again tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day for the rest of their lives. Because some love stories are meant to last forever, and theirs was one of them.